We're talking Big Ten here at the Voice of College Football, and we've got Big Ten weather here in the Midwest out of nowhere. Yikes. Man, it is not just blustery and cold, it's just nasty and wet and damp and miserable out there. And I'm complaining, and I shouldn't be complaining because for the past 2 weeks, it's been amazingly beautiful in the Midwest, specifically here in the Buckeye State. It has been amazing, like crystal clear blue skies and anywhere from 70 to just about 90 degrees every day. So a plummet to about 40 or 45 degrees and blustery winds and spitting rain and nasty out there. So let's keep it inside. Let's talk some college football. All right. Appreciate everyone being here. And my name's Mark, the voice of college football, and we're here talking the sport that we all love each and every day with all of you. So thanks for joining us. We have left the link in the chat for phone calls. So let's talk some college football, because I got to say, I've not prepared anything, which is typical. I just did a record with Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Ducks, Locked On Pac-12. He's all over the place covering the Pac-12 and college football and college athletics and Oregon in particular. So we just got done. I've not had any time today, as evidenced by the video we just released. Check it out. Fits right in with the crowd right here. It should. Big Ten TV ratings. And we gave it a deep dive in regards to how many people were watching all these Big Ten teams in 2022. And a lot of people have requested for me to go back in time and go to previous seasons, which I may or may not, depending on the response to the videos. But keep in mind that, yes, there are certainly fluctuations from season to season, but the better teams get the TV ratings every year. They just do. But appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. Remember, the Amazon link is in the description section of all the videos, including the one we just released on the Big Ten TV ratings for 2022. So please grab the link in the description section, shop Amazon, and when you do, use the link that we provide. It helps us build the channel. Also, one other thing before we take our first call, which is also just basically all the content that you can expect here coming up soon. So we are making our way through spring football. We will be back at it this Saturday with whatever spring games are on hand. We will be delivering our analysis across the board and possibly a watch party. But soon on the docket will be the month of May and the great debate month of May. So leave your debate topics in the comment section of any of the videos, or hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. We want to size up as many great debates in the month of May in college football. And also, just keep in mind that we've got a number of things to tackle here as soon as we get through spring practice, like conference power rankings, position rankings, all-time program rankings. We're going to release our 2023 program rankings as well. All right, let's hit the phone lines right here at the Voice of College Football.
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. Who's on the line here with us?
It's me, Sports Talk 101.
Sports Talk 101.
So I have a couple questions. What are your thoughts on the Penn? Let's start with the Ohio State spring game on Saturday. What are your thoughts and opinions on what you saw from the Buckeyes on Saturday?
What did I see from the Buckeyes on Saturday? Well, I saw Kyle McCord not play particularly well. I'm not really that alarmed by it or concerned, but he just didn't play very well. He played okay. He wasn't, he didn't give the ball away, but yeah, that's not a display that Ohio State fans want to see during the regular season, especially against the better teams. So again, let's understand what it is. It's one practice out of 15. And it's the practice that we all get to see, which makes it seem bigger than life to all of us and makes it seem as though it's more important than the other practice sessions, when in fact it's probably less important because the cameras are on, and therefore The coaches are not going to implement anything that's going to, show their hand for the regular season. So Kyle McCord, unfortunately, the running back situation, the top two guys didn't. Well, Mayan Williams played a little bit, from what I remember. I can't say that I really was locked in on it. We were doing a watch party here, and I was taking calls during the spring game, so I can't say that I really analyzed it. I thought the defense outplayed the offense most of the day. The defense got a lot of 3 and outs. The defense, the coverage. I thought that Denzel Burke had a really good game. I thought that the offensive line, from a run blocking standpoint and a pass blocking standpoint, actually, there's always an inordinate amount of sacks in these spring games. And I hear that from all the spring games. There were 10 sacks, there were 12 sacks. Well, of course, there are going to be that many sacks. All you have to do is grab the guy's jersey, grab a thread on his jersey, and that's going to be a sack. So that's about all I've got for you on the Ohio State spring game, because I was not like scouting it.
Right, I understand. And then the other one was because the second question is the Penn. You're talking the Penn State spring game. What you saw from them?
Well, it was the same kind of deal. After we got done with Ohio State on Saturday, I did watch the Penn State spring game. I was watching that at the same time as I was watching Clemson. I would have the same takeaway if I was a Penn State fan as an Ohio State fan about the starting quarterback position, because Drew Aller, he didn't play well. He didn't look good. And I know that he's a much better quarterback than that. So Penn State fans, I would not be concerned. Drew Aller's going to be fine, I believe. Now, other than that, Penn State, I believe, will probably field the best defense, at least in the East Division this year, and maybe in the entire Big Ten. And I think we saw most of that. You can't take too much away from the spring game, except that Penn State's defense is way ahead of its offense, and probably will be going into the season.
Right, and I think I agree. So out of the Big Ten, the spring games you saw so far, what's the most impressive one?
Well, I've seen Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. I can't think of anybody else that I've seen. I can't think of anybody else who's played. I know Michigan State as well went on Saturday, and I didn't see much of that. I would say that Michigan is a little bit ahead of the other two, I think, for a number of reasons that are pretty obvious. They're just they were the better team last year, and they have an experienced quarterback coming back. And the fine details that Michigan needs to deal with are pretty. I don't want to say that they're not important, but they really don't have any obvious needs or question marks on that team.
Yeah, it's a Michigan fan. I agree. Yeah, I think I was watching the Michigan game too, and it was looked all on both sides of football. We looked good heading the season. I think heading the season, we should have no issue heading the season. I think in terms of schedule, we should be fine. Hopefully, I know Nebraska. I think Nebraska has their spring game on upcoming Saturday. I know that's so. What you're looking for at that Nebraska spring game?
Well, what I would like to be looking for is a quarterback competition, but Casey Thompson, I don't believe is going to be available for that game. So there's not a direct competition right now between Casey Thompson and Jeff Sims, but that is the quarterback battle, and probably the most intriguing quarterback battle in the Big Ten, just because I think Kyle McCord has a decisive advantage over Devin Brown. Nebraska's offensive line has been the worst position on its team for the last 4 or 5 years. So that is supposed to be improved. They just had one of their wide receivers hit the transfer portal, Alante Brown. That just happened in the last 24 hours. But they have to replace Trey Palmer, wide receiver. And so they need a number one receiver to emerge. Thomas Fedone was the top rated tight end in the country 2 years ago, and he's had all sorts of injury issues, but I believe that he will be playing in the spring game. So I'm curious to see him. Uh, Eric Gilbert, the transfer from LSU, uh, as well, will be intriguing to watch him play.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully, I think Nebraska just. I mean, I think a question mark obviously in the wide placing. It's hard to replace like a wide receiver like Trey Palmer, and when you have such a good receiver coming, it's hard to replace really good. But I've seen teams try to do it throughout the years, but it's hard to have a guy be similar stats and play similarly to what um, Trey Palmer did last year.
Yeah, when Trey Palmer, well, he didn't really get, obviously the wide receiver position is the most dependent on the field. And when Casey Thompson went down and Trey Palmer was basically, uh, he was pretty useless just because they couldn't get the ball to him. All you have to do is track the Nebraska scores and the total yardage to see how inept they were on offense last year when Trey Palmer, nobody could get the ball to him.
That's also true. And of course, and then I know, but I know Michigan just landed a four-star offensive lineman, and they got some good guys for the upcoming 2024 class. I just want your thoughts on what Michigan pieces that they picked up over the last few days.
Well, we posted a video yesterday about Mr. Frazier, the offensive lineman out of Texas that they just picked up. He's a top 40 player in the state. He's a top 20 offensive tackle, top 200 player roughly. So for Michigan, obviously the big wins in recruiting this year has been to take one of the top three players out of the state of Ohio and Jaden Marshall. And then number two, to be extremely close. I don't believe they've received a commit yet, but from the edge rusher out of Fitch High School in Youngstown out of Ohio. So, we tracked and posted a video where we looked at Jim Harbaugh's recruiting in Ohio since and overall, but specifically in Ohio since he's been at Michigan. And this is the first time he's been able to get a top 10 player out of the state of Ohio, and he's close to getting 3. So that's a big win. And obviously they got a quarterback when in fact they've had difficulty landing top-notch quarterbacks in the past, but they've got one of the top 5 quarterbacks committed. So Michigan's had a remarkable recruiting run for the last 6 weeks, far beyond anything that they've had since Harbaugh's been there.
Right. That's very true. I realized Michigan's been getting more players from Ohio, at least in the last few weeks, been going to Michigan and then towards Ohio State. Is that because Ohio State is lacking in-state recruiting, or is Michigan just doing outranking or beating them Ohio State in terms of getting recruits from Ohio?
So you're saying that this current recruiting class, Michigan has more players from Ohio than Ohio does? Ohio State?
I mean, not for this class, but like so far, Michigan's starting to look like take more players from Ohio.
Yeah, they are.
And Ohio State, so like, is that because Ohio State is not looking in state and more like out state, or is just still Ohio State still getting players from and still Ohio State still getting players within in state, but.
Well, I don't want to discount what Michigan's been able to do. I do think that it's pretty obvious to see. And again, we broke all this down and posted a video that Ohio State has generally been focused on the top 7 or 8 players in the state. And Michigan will go down the list further than Ohio State will in tracking the Buckeye State. So there's more players available to Michigan just based on their approach to recruiting than to Ohio State. That said, Ohio State did pick up a commit yesterday from the running back out of Millersburg. I can't think of his name. He's got a hyphenated name, Williams Dixon, I believe. And he is a top 25 player in the state. So that's not usually where Ohio State goes for its players. But they got another Ohio commit this weekend.
Right. Who is I was thinking this weekend, right?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I was spring game
this weekend. Yes.
This weekend. Okay, and that'll be televised, right? On the Big Ten Network.
I don't know that because Iowa typically doesn't really play a game. I don't know. I haven't looked at the Big Ten Network schedule for Saturday, but Iowa, they play a little bit earlier in the day, number one. And number two, they typically don't play a game. So they're usually not on the Big Ten Network. Although Michigan State pretty much does the same thing and does not play a game, but they're still on TV.
Right. Speaking of Iowa, I know offense is the need, but with Eric All and Mac Miller transferring to Iowa, and obviously Iowa loses some key players offensively. I think they lost a tight end and to the draft. A couple guys to draft, a few guys to the portal. Do you think Iowa's gonna obviously if I would have to go, let's say for the transfer portal up again in May, for a short period of time, who's a key player for Iowa to help their offense going?
Who's the key player for the Iowa offense to get going?
To help them improve the offense.
I'm sorry, I guess I'm not following the question.
So the transfer portal is going to open up right after the spring games.
Yes.
And obviously some players under the transfer portal, what key players you think, potential, or I guess needed positions?
Needed positions for Iowa?
Obviously, and then players for those positions. I think Iowa should aim for.
Okay. Well, needed positions: number one, wide receiver; number two, offensive line; number three, running back. I'd go in that order. They've got a tight end. They've got a couple tight ends. They got two really good tight ends, and they've got a quarterback. And they're spotty along the offensive line, and they may have the worst wide receiver core in the Big Ten.
Right.
And in terms of specific players they should go after, well, there aren't many specific players yet in the transfer portal. I just looked at it about an hour ago, and there are some guys in the portal, of course, but we're going to see a whole lot more. And I haven't really searched it in that way to look specifically for Iowa, but those are the positions of need. Now, I've not made any kind of direct match between guys in the portal. I haven't seen anybody in the portal on the offensive side of the ball that's been a productive player. I've seen a lot of top 100 and 150 recruits from a year or two ago that, because they're not getting playing time, have entered the portal, but I haven't seen any productive players on the offensive side of the ball enter the portal yet.
Right. I see.
All right, man. Well, thanks for calling. We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Welcome in, everyone, to the Voice of College Football. As Joey is letting us know there in the chat, please share the link. We pretty much promote this organically, so we would ask for your help if you enjoy the conversation, the discussion, the debate, the analysis that we do here at the Voice of College Football. Please share the video out there on social media. I just looked at the transfer portal, and nobody's catching my eye yet. That doesn't mean that there aren't talented players out there, because there are. And I just had this conversation, like I said, in a record with Spencer McLaughlin, that you see now that we've gone through this. Now, I think this would be the third off season of the transfer portal at this rate, under these rules, that you see you see various categories of players. And one category of player is the group of 5 player that was lowly regarded, lowly recruited, lowly ranked coming out of high school and proved himself. So, not much expected, signed with a group of 5 team and turned out to be an extremely good, productive player. And now entering a final season, wanting to maybe follow some NIL. So let's not be naive about that. But in addition to following NIL money, also getting to a Power 5 brand where they can receive better coaching and more NFL type coaching to develop themselves to prepare for the NFL draft. So you see that category of player. And then we're also seeing, and especially over the first 3 days of the transfer portal opening in April here, we're seeing the type players that were highly recruited. So as opposed to the guys I just explained, these guys highly recruited, top 100 players, 150 players, that for whatever reason, it has not worked out for them at their current school. So they're in the coming out, a lot of them from the 2022 class. So they had the 2022 season. Nothing happened for them. They weren't able to make it happen. They weren't able to get playing time. And now they're seeing how things are shaping up now that they've made it through spring practice going into 2023. And they're saying, wow, this looks similar to last season, where my standing on the depth chart is not where I would like it. So I'm out. Transfer portal. So, of course, the big name, and he actually just entered the transfer portal announced by 247 Sports 3 minutes ago. Now, this is not breaking news because he announced it. The player announced it days ago. So we already knew about it, but he's now just officially in the transfer portal. And that is Georgia defensive tackle Bear Alexander. Bear Alexander was a top 50 player coming out of high school. I thought he was going to go to Texas A&M. I believe he committed at one point to Texas A&M. He ended up going to Georgia. He had 2 TFLs in the national championship game. Why is he transferring? Lord knows. Bear Alexander. We also have Alabama second-year tight end Elijah Brown. He was a 4-star in the 22 class. I don't have any statistics on him. I don't remember Elijah Brown playing for Alabama, so I doubt if he has. But there you've got a 4-star tight end, former 4-star tight end from the 22 class. And again, this is going to be the theme. 22 class. So they're players that didn't play much last year, if at all, and they're seeing the writing on the wall for 23. So this is going to be the narrative for most of the transfer portal. 2022 class players. These guys don't hang around. They don't wait around. They don't see things developing for them. They don't see an opportunity to wait, do their best, and then break through their sophomore or junior season. That's out now. So another one is Caleb Etienne. So we've heard good things about Caleb Etienne. He's an offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State. He has landed. So this is the first big land. The tackle has landed at BYU. Caleb Etienne. Okay. We talked about group of 5 players who have established themselves as productive players wanting to move on, wanting to take the next step. How about Eastern Michigan wide receiver Darius Lassiter has entered the transfer portal? And why don't I call this up? And in the meantime, let me drop the link in the chat as well. And I apologize to the 2 callers who were waiting to jump on the line and they have dropped off the line now. You can certainly give us a call, and the link is in the chat. I do apologize for not putting the link in the description section of the video. I just never remember to do it. I should do that. And we're going to take this call, and I'm going to post the Twitter page of the 247 Sports Transfer Portal. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
How's it going, Mark? My name's Christian.
Hey, what's going on?
Well, pretty good. Sorry, I just got off work. I had a couple questions for you. Big
Sure.
Wisconsin fan, big UCF fan.
I missed the second
pretty sure
part
the
of that.
Wisconsin
You said
game's this
big
Saturday.
Wisconsin fan and then big what?
Oh, UCF,
You're kind of cutting
Central Florida.
out. UCF. That's an
UCF.
interesting combination.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have family up in Wisconsin. I was born in Florida, so I kind of got dragged into the two.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure Wisconsin spring game's this Saturday. What are your big highlights for the game this weekend? I'm pretty excited for the quarterback battle, if there's even one. I know the SMU quarterback's there now, but I know we got that transfer from Oklahoma. I'm excited to watch him too. I was just wondering what your big keys for the spring game were.
Well, like you, I want to see the quarterbacks compete. I don't want to make too much out of that because we are coming off a weekend in which the Penn State and the Ohio State starting quarterbacks are what I expect them to be. Didn't play extremely well, and I'm not that concerned about it. But it's even more important for Wisconsin, of course, as you know, implementing a new offense. So what does this offense look like? And even though we're not going to get the exotics, we're not going to get the exotic play calling that we're going to see later because of obvious reasons. They don't want to show their hand. We're still going to get the concepts, and we're still going to get the formations of what Wisconsin offense is going to look like this year, which we're being told, as you well know, that it's going to be a departure from what it's been for the last 35 years.
Yeah, that's. I just want to see how much the run game is going to be in effect, because I know but in the winters, once it gets like Wisconsin, like a average Wisconsin winter, I want to see how he's going to implement the run game with I guess a pseudo air raid offense. I'm excited to see what he does in the spring game, if he even shows his hand at that.
Yeah, so I still expect, of course, Braylon Allen's there, and Luke Fickell is a former D lineman. He understands that football is physical as much as anybody, and I don't know that he wants to stray too far from that. So I just think that he wants this offense to be more balanced, more diverse, more imaginative than it's been in the past. But I would expect this to be much like, let's say, Jeff Levy, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, where from the outside, people have the perception that Lane Kiffin does nothing but throw the ball all over the place and just scheme up matchups in space, when in fact, Ole Miss has led the SEC in rushing the last 2 years. You know, the same thing with Josh Heupel at Tennessee. He's got the up-tempo, the speed and space reputation, but it all starts with a ground game, and they're very strong at running the football. I would expect Luke Fickell to be exactly that. Us to see more options, more creativity, more formations out of the Wisconsin offense, but still to be a ground-oriented team.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw like the most intimidating places to play this season. I know you don't take much interest in that. I just wanted to you saw that. My brother.
Why do you say I don't take much interest in that?
I remember like when I first started watching, you were talking about like College Game Day, places like that, and I just assumed it was like the same thing as College Game Day, because no one really knows what the stadium's going to be like. Because I remember like 3 years ago, Wisconsin was playing a top 5 Michigan team, and like half the student or the whole student section was not there. So it's like, I don't know how ESPN could assume like I saw Wisconsin, Ohio State was going to be there. Like, you don't know like how good Luke Fickell's going to be in his first year, and Ohio State could just be Ohio State, be going into that game undefeated, scoring 80 points a game, and Wisconsin could be total dumpster fire, which I doubt it's going to happen. But I just saw Wisconsin, Ohio State on there, and then Tennessee, Georgia is going to be on there, I live in Tennessee, and everyone's talking about how how excited they are for Georgia to come to town. It's like, I don't really know about that just yet, because Tennessee had one good season, and everyone, I mean, Tennessee, everyone's super excited about it. I'm just kind of sitting in the back, like, I'll see what happens when the season starts. I was just wondering what you thought about the list, though.
Well, just to clarify on my thoughts about College Game Day, number one, I think it's an amazing show and always has been. I don't watch it nearly as much as I used to, so I don't want that to get confused with anything else I had to say. But well, basically,
Sorry about that. I didn't mean like you hate
no,
the
not
show.
at all,
I
not at
apologize.
all. No, you didn't say anything wrong. I just wanted to clarify that. And then the other thing is that I just don't understand the fascination with people caring where College Game Day is. I just don't understand that. Like if I was on campus, I get that. I get it if uh, a student at the University of Wisconsin called and said, "I really want College Game Day to show up for the Iowa game." Absolutely, I can understand that. You want to go out there, but I just don't understand the craze across college football caring where College Game Day is. I just don't get it. So anyway, back to the stadium. So I take it from what you're telling me, ESPN did a ranking on the toughest places to play.
Yeah, this next coming season, they put like Georgia, Tennessee, or Tennessee at Georgia, the number one. It's going to be the most hostile environment, or something like that.
Oh,
I just saw it this morning when I woke up. It's
I
like the
got
most
you.
hostile stadiums
Well, let me see
in
if
the
I can
upcoming
find
season.
it.
Some of them, like I could agree with, but you just like I don't know why they do it. So I mean, obviously for clicks and stuff, but I just like it's weird. I like rankings this early in the season. That's what I'm trying to get at. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Because everyone at work was talking about it this morning. I didn't even know about it until they told me. I was like, oh.
Huh. Well, I have not been able to find it. So you're saying so they were picking up not necessarily just stadiums for any game. They were talking about specific matchups for this season.
Yeah, like Auburn, Alabama was like 7. Wisconsin, Ohio State was 8 or 9 or something like that. It was just I was like, huh. Obviously, I think Tennessee, Georgia was 1. Then Ohio State, Michigan was 2. So it's like, okay. So they kind of picked like the hardcore rivalries in the top 5. And then I was like, okay. So there wasn't much thought into it. I just saw it and I was like, oh, it's just interesting. I was like, I don't know why they're doing it so early.
Well, they're doing it early because we are still, 4.5 months away from the season. And the longer that those sites with those articles stay online, they can create clicks for months and months and months and months.
That's true.
As opposed to like 1 week before the season, they're only going to get clicks for about 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one more question. It's
Sure.
not 10 question. It's I heard that Quinn Ewers is QB1. Is that true? I didn't hear about that, or I just heard about it on the radio. I didn't know it was actually official.
So I did not hear it out of Sark's mouth, but I heard it. I read it a couple different places. So he must have said it at some point after the game or during the game. I know that he was mic'd up during the game, and I did see some of it. I didn't watch the entire game. That he at one point basically, which surprised me, that he would put an end to any kind of quarterback speculation, because it seems as though, number one, he should have a quarterback battle. Based on what I've seen, I would maintain that there's a quarterback battle, because I don't think Quinn Ewers has shown us that much that he should be locked in as a starting quarterback like he's some kind of star, because he's not. And he was pretty marginal last season. Number two, there's obviously 2 extremely talented quarterbacks behind him. And even though I doubt if Arch Manning is going to be ready. And I know a lot of people jumped on him that he looked awful and all this other business. Well, he didn't look that bad. And it's a spring game, and he's a true freshman. But Malik Murphy, I don't know if you've seen him play.
Yeah, he looked amazing. He looked really good.
He's an exceptional talent. I just don't understand shutting down the quarterback competition when you don't have a proven Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy kind of guy coming back. And also because then you open up yourself to one of these guys jumping in the transfer portal. Now, Arch Manning's not going to do that, but Malik Murphy, I know he's only a redshirt freshman, but I guess there's a possibility that he would say, I'm not being given a chance here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to end up asking you. I kind of hope Malik Murphy does transfer. I just don't know where, because I like him a lot when I was game. I was like, holy cow, this kid's good.
Well, let's think about all sorts of different places where he could totally upgrade the situation. I'm thinking places like Auburn, Oklahoma State.
That's what I was thinking.
Those two come to mind
UCF, I'd
immediately.
like to see him get another guy to after wow, I forgot his name.
John Rice
Bryce
Plumlee.
Plumlee after he leaves. Yeah, I would like to see him go to UCF if John when he leaves. I'd love to see him in Gus Malzahn's offense. Well, I guess it's not his offense anymore. I just like to see him in that style of offense. So Auburn, any of those high potent offenses, because he's a scrambling quarterback too, isn't he? I looked at his 24/7 profile, and he
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I thought it said full threat. Yeah,
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to see
And
him in
he's a big
hot,
guy,
fast-paced
too.
offense.
And he's a monster to try to break down. Like, he's a big dude.
Oh, he didn't look that big on. I guess everything looks smaller on TV, but how big is he? I don't even.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know his measurements per se, but he's got a big build that he will probably continue to fill out. Let's see here. Well, according to his 247, and this is when he was coming out, he was 6'4.5", 225.
Oh, man, he's like Anthony Richardson size. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
exactly.
he got an arm on him too. When he threw those back-to-back deep balls, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. And that height and weight has to be a year and a half old. So
Yeah.
who knows? He's probably put on a little bit of weight. Oh, yeah. He's a talent. I don't understand why Sark has to put the end to any kind of quarterback competition.
I thought he made because maybe he thinks Quinn Ewers is a flight risk or something. Because I feel like, well, no, would he have to sit out a year now? Because he already transferred once.
See, that's a great point that you bring up. So, yes, but I don't want to say that for sure because it seems like for whatever reason, every 9 out of 10 rules that we know that are in play get bypassed for some reason. But that was actually reestablished and confirmed this time last year that the transfer rule, the one-time transfer rule, was going to be enforced. So, yes, that should be the case.
I remember like 5 years ago, there was a two-time, maybe a 3 times transfer. He was an offensive lineman, and then some quarterback transferred. But this offensive lineman had a legit reason to transfer back home. I think his mom or grandmother had Alzheimer's or cancer or something. And everyone got really mad because he wasn't able to transfer, but the quarterback was. I remember that like 4 or 5 years ago. I think that's why that rule was implemented. I can't remember.
Yeah, well, we obviously used to be in a place where graduates could transfer immediately, and otherwise you had to sit out a year. And then there were legitimate situations in which, yes, we certainly want to have a situation where a player can transfer if they've got a family medical situation or another hardship that they would leave. And those were causes for waivers to be given for legitimate concerns. But you know how that leads to a lot of shaky, sketchy kind of situations where any excuse can be made up, and the NCAA at some point just basically just let every transfer immediately go through.
Yeah. I actually have one more question back to the Big Ten. I'm not a big Northwestern fan. Ever since I started watching Wisconsin, it seems like Northwestern's always been a thorn in our side.
Yeah.
Do you think me and my dad were talking about this the other day? Do you think Penn State, Northwestern head coach, you think if he doesn't win more than 5 games this year, he's gone?
That is a tremendous question because I did post a hot seat rankings for head coaches, and I put Pat Fitzgerald in there, even though on one hand, much like Scott Frost, and look at the time that Scott Frost was given, who produced no winning seasons, and Pat Fitzgerald has done a great job at Northwestern at times, but the current condition of the program is just deplorable, awful. You're talking about the worst football team in the Power 5 last year, and one of the very worst in the nation. And now he's had 2 seasons like this back to back, and he's had 3 of these in 4 years, to where they are just awful. And you would think that they would be a candidate for the transfer portal, but because of their academic situation, the last I noticed, they only had 1 transfer coming in, and they need all sorts of help. Yeah, that's a tough call because he's kind of a different deal. He's a favored son, and he obviously has already been given a kind of a long leash compared to what a lot of universities would put up with. 3 out of 4 bad seasons. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I would think that time is running out, though. He may have 1 more bad season before they say, okay, this is it. This is the season you got to deliver in 2024. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking my call, Mark. I love your show, so keep it up.
Thank you, Christian. I appreciate it. Well, it's always nice to hear from new people that have been watching for a long time and enjoy what we do here at the Voice of College Football, and then decide to call. We have a contribution coming in that I need to catch. No, I believe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm looking at something else. So that is not. That is for a live stream from last night. There we go. Okay. So anyway, I'm scrolling down the transfer portal. There we see the player that I had cited earlier from the group of 5, Eastern Michigan wide receiver Darius Lassiter, 40 catches, 471 through the air, 4 touchdowns. Here's Gary Bryant. Much has been talked about concerning him, and now he has named his commitment date. Brendan Gant. I know that name. Former 4-star DB, moved to linebacker last year. And yeah, he played. But he is entering the transfer portal as well. Minnesota defensive lineman Trill Carter. He's a good player. He was honorable mention All Big Ten. And he goes to Texas. There you've got a North Texas tight end in Varkey's Gums visiting Arkansas. He's also looking at Oregon and Utah. Oregon has had more guys enter the transfer portal than anybody I'm seeing. Harrison Bailey, remember when he was the big quarterback prospect at Tennessee? I don't know where he's going to go now. He went to UNLV. I don't know where you transfer. When you've transferred out of Tennessee to UNLV, I don't know where he's going to go from there. Okay, there's our first Oregon transfer portal edition. Oregon cornerback Jalil Tucker, former top 75 recruit. So this is exactly what I was talking about a few minutes ago. Top recruits from 2022 who aren't seeing the field yet entering the transfer portal. There's another one. Oregon linebacker Keith Brown will be at Louisville this weekend. He's a former 4-star. So cornerback Jalil Tucker and a linebacker Keith Brown out of Oregon. There's another one. Oregon edge Trevin Mae has officially entered the transfer portal. 3 Oregon defensive players. Penn State offensive tackle Jimmy Christ. To the chat, David Knight says Ohio State is the team to beat, no doubt. Jason, appreciate you being here. That's what happens when you hand high school kids bags of cash who are unproven. Oregon players probably felt disrespected and transferred. Michael is telling us that Oklahoma cornerback Jaden Davis has entered the transfer portal. We talked about Elijah Brown. We talked about the Eastern Michigan wide receiver Lassiter. Please join the show if you'd like to talk some college football. We have left the link in the chat. Coming up very soon, program rankings for 2023. I know I've been talking about those for 10 days at least. I get it. I just have to finalize them. I need to review them, make sure I'm not making a mistake, which I'm sure I will. Of course, they're not perfect, but we will release our program rankings for 2023. And then, not to confuse anyone, we're going to wait about 6 weeks. And then sometime in the summer, we're going to release our all-time program rankings. So look out for those. Our buddy David Knight's going to join the show here. David, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, how are you, sir?
I am doing just fine. What's going on?
Hey, I hate to drag in another person's thoughts from another show.
Sure. All right.
But hear me out for a second. I was watching Josh Pate a little bit this morning while I was getting ready for work, and he was talking about the best programs versus not necessarily the best ranked teams, which, you know, I kind of get the concept, but he had slid Michigan ahead of Ohio State, and I didn't quite get that. And here's what I want to say. I have no animosity against Michigan. I have no animosity against their fans, but I don't see that Michigan, for their 2 years, has had that longevity that Ohio State has. And I'll give them credit for beating them 2 years in a row, but I don't know. I don't see it happening again. What are your thoughts on that?
So this is a little tricky. So let's establish a few things. So we are talking about a current ranking, correct?
He was talking about program rankings, like where do teams?
Sure.
He kind of used a five-year window.
Okay. Well, if it's a 5-year window, then Ohio State's far ahead of Michigan.
That's what I thought.
It's not even close. But if we're talking about we're ranking the programs today, right now, I think it's a great debate because Michigan has the obvious argument point that they've won the last 2 games.
Sure.
And they won them by multiple scores and they led to Big Ten championships. So I differentiate that from Michigan winning some games in the 90s against superior Ohio State teams, and Michigan was 8-4, 7-5, and they pulled off an upset. These Michigan teams won the game that led to a championship. And they also have a returning starting quarterback. They also have a coach who I can see, because of the obvious connection to the university and love for the university, that is, despite all of his overtures to the NFL, I can see him staying at Michigan, whereas I don't know that Ryan Day is going to stay at Ohio State.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, let me ask you that. Okay, let me bounce off that, Mark. Do you think Ryan Day has like a greater height to achieve by going to the NFL and being successful versus staying at Ohio State and being successful? Or is that not even in the conversation?
Well, we are merely speculating because neither one of us knows Ryan Day.
Nope.
I would think that if Ryan Day had mapped out his perfect situation going forward, it is to win a national championship at Ohio State. And then at the first opportunity that looked like a good opportunity in the NFL, not just to go anywhere, but
No.
a strong opportunity in the NFL, that he would leave. That's my guess.
Okay. And that's fair. Yeah, I mean, because like you said, you really never know what's going in another individual's mind. You know what's circulating in there. I would hope that he would stay another maybe 5 or 6 years because he's fairly young, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's still young. Yes. I don't know what his age is, but he's got to be like 45, something like that. You still with us, David? I think David froze. To speak to David's first point, I'm going to release program rankings here pretty soon. And I got to tell you that I'm going to wrestle and have wrestled with Ohio State and Michigan. So, because this is what I truly believe, is that Michigan, if you look at the boxes that should be checked, they've checked them. When you win head to head by 2 and 3 scores and you go on to win the conference championship, well, you have rightfully been able to confirm and back up your pursuit of the dragon and slaying the dragon, and then you confirmed it. So, based on tangible results, Michigan should be the top ranked team or program. We're talking programs in the Big Ten. However, I still look at the two rosters and I still believe that Ohio State is still recruiting better and still somewhat of a better program. But that has to be, I have to come up with if I want to rank Ohio State ahead of Michigan, I got to come up with a better argument than that. Because I just told David, Michigan's winning the games, they're winning the championships, and they've got a coach who I have a little bit more confidence in. I still think Ryan Day is an exceptional coach, but that Jim Harbaugh has proven in other stops and now is proving at Michigan to be one of the very best. So, and to see that Ohio State team play Georgia last year, I just thought that was a different level of game. That was a different level of game involving two different teams, and Ohio State showed what they could do when they put it together. All right, let's get to the phone lines. We got Go Jay on here. What's going on?
Good evening, brother. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. Quick question for you.
Sure.
Do you think Chip and Hayden have kind of earned that opening day spot, week 1 Indiana? Even though Trey hasn't played, we saw his body of work. We know what he's capable of doing. But do you think them guys as a tandem has kind of positioned themselves into at least, if not starters, they should get that first series for putting in the work they put in?
So my thought is that if you have an established starter who's extremely good at their role in their position, and let's say that they get hurt, they get nicked up, they can't practice all the time, and somebody else is playing well, if you evaluate that original starter was at his best, he was still a better player than the person that's on the field now, I would still say that original starter is the starter. Now, to this situation, as long as Mayan Williams, who obviously played in the spring game, and Travion Henderson, who did not, if all 4 of these guys are in camp, I don't think Mayan Williams or Travion Henderson, for as good as they've been in the past and as productive as they've been, I don't think that they've put themselves in some kind of situation where they're untouchable. I would play the backs that play the best in August camp. That I would just have an open competition, and the running backs would slot themselves based on their performance in August.
Outstanding. That's kind of the answer I was looking for. But I know Trey has a body of work, and I know Dalla has put some stuff on film, as did Chip in that Michigan game. So, I'm not caught up in kind of yesteryear, and I know Trey has that talent, but I think sometimes if you open that door, you can have these conversations we have now. Where I'm thinking like, hey, for this year's team, I think the big back and that young Dallin is what's needed for this year's team, because of that run game is going to be needed this season, because of, I think, our quarterback. It's not dipped, but it's not CJ, right? We've been spoiled by CJ, but I think these two backs is what this year's team needs. I could be wrong. It's just my opinion.
No, I think you're going in a direction just basically saying, we're going to see if Ryan Day can be a flexible head coach who is able to adapt his scheme and his approach to the lean of the team, the personnel that's ready to carry the team. You always have to have, they're not going anywhere without strong quarterback play, but that doesn't mean that the quarterback has to throw the ball 50 times and it has to be the guy and has to shoulder the entire load. Speaking to your point, I think, is that why not lean more on the running game, lean on the offensive line from a run blocking standpoint, and work into this season and see how McCord, most likely, who's going to be the starter, develops, and go from there, more so than just saying, well, I'm Ryan Day and we've got the best wide receivers in the country, and therefore we just are always a pass first team. No, I think you look through the great coaches through college and NFL history, and they adapted to the situation.
Definitely agree, because I caught the end of Cooper, but I really grew up on Tressel, and I think he understood that game, where if you run that ball, that Michigan Ohio State game, that is a game where it's going to be won up front, and I think Day hasn't really grasped that, and he abandons it too quick. So I'm just like, yo, for that one game only, I need you to be Tressel and not Day.
Yeah. You make a great point. And if you look through Tressel's years at Ohio State, even though we look back on them now and think just Tressel ball, run the ball, play good defense, special teams, and all that, there was the shootout with NC State in 2003 where Krenzel threw 4 or 5 touchdowns and threw for a ton of yardage, and they had to score 45 points to beat Phillip Rivers and that crew. And there was the Kansas State game later in that season in the bowl game where they had to put up 35 points in that game. And we could go on. And obviously Troy Smith won a Heisman Trophy as a quarterback at Ohio State. You can't do that and threw 30 touchdowns. And you can't be too conservative and do that. So Jim Tressel was a little bit more resilient than and flexible than people give him credit for. And he completely changed the offense. I don't want to say completely changed the offense, adjusted the offense when Terrell Pryor became the starting quarterback.
Outstanding. I got one more question, or
sure,
statement, or whatever. How do you evaluate Josh Proctor? I think he looked it. I think he had a good spring, and I think he's fairly said, okay, I'm all in. His swagger out there in some of these practices I've been watching, I think he's all in, and I think he may be that guy, even though I know the fans love Sonny.
Yeah. Well, the fans always love the guy that has a name, and obviously Sonny Styles has a name. He's got a legacy, and he's got 5 stars next to his name, and they always like the new guy. There's just a fascination with recruiting and with whoever's the new guy, the next guy. But let's not forget about Josh Proctor. man, he would just, if he could be the player that he showed that he had the capability of being, and he could be that for a full season, man, he could give this defense a huge shot in the arm that I wasn't necessarily expecting out of him. But yeah, you make a good point about Josh Proctor, and let's not give up on him.
All right, brother. That's it for me, man. I'm gonna take it back to the chats and scoot over for the next person.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the call, man. Have a good night. All right. I want to clarify something I see here. I don't necessarily know what the conversation is. I don't see the previous comments, but Dave is commenting about Patreon. I just want to make sure that we set this up in such a way, talking about the Patreon versus the YouTube memberships, that you can go either route. And I got kind of caught in the middle because we had already established the Patreon, already had 75 or 80 people. And then the YouTube memberships is something that YouTube just started. We wanted to take advantage of that and offer that benefit and offer additional content and other perks and benefits there. And so you don't need to do both necessarily. You can get the same results and the same benefits basically from either one. And so just do what you can and be here. And we will carry on with the Voice of College Football here, but we appreciate all that you can do in supporting what we do every day. I just dropped a video about a half hour before we came on looking at Big Ten TV ratings for 2022, and we took a different angle on that one. And again, we are about to explode with content now that we've almost made our way through spring ball. And so we're going to see 2023 program rankings, all-time rankings, and we're going to separate those. I know I confused people in the past, a few people out there, when we released program rankings for 2023 or that current year. And then we also released program rankings all time. So we're going to separate those. And we've got all sorts of great debates coming up in May, as May is the great debate month here at the Voice of College Football. And in addition to that, once we clear spring, we'll size up all these teams, look at quarterback battles, look at position battles, look at ranking position units and players in each conference and throughout the nation, and do all the good things that we do here at the Voice of College Football, which also includes some schedule previews here very soon as well. Nick, thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate you. Nick asks, Mark, does it concern you as an Ohio State homer? Who are we talking about here? Anyway, that Michigan is starting to recruit at an elite level. They've been beating Ohio State through player development, and now it starts getting elite players look out. Well, I would say that if you're a Michigan fan or an Ohio State fan and you want to win, and your goal and aim is to win championships, you should always be concerned about the other. You know, I think as we're hearing here from our Michigan friend, Nick, that Ohio State fans should be concerned about Michigan. Well, I still think, regardless of what I heard from a couple callers the other night, that Michigan fans should be concerned with Ohio State. All right, let's not overplay how many players Michigan has been able to get out of the Buckeye State. Let's not go too crazy on that. It's not like they've taken the top 5 players out of the state of Ohio for 3 consecutive recruiting cycles. Okay, we're talking about a couple players. Okay, now that's far more than what they've been able to do in all of Jim Harbaugh's tenure at Michigan, in which he has been able to get 0 top 10 players out of the state of Ohio coming into this recruiting year. So it is significant. It is a good play on Jim Harbaugh's part. It is positive momentum and direction that obviously has to do with the swing in the series and the swing in championships and Michigan taking over the Big Ten. I don't know if Michigan has necessarily been beating Ohio State through player development. Okay, they've been beating Ohio State, yes, because they won the last 2 years and they didn't have a roster as talented as Ohio State. Okay, got your point. I thought you were telling us all that basically Michigan is beating Ohio State in player development. Well, maybe in some cases they are. Well, of course they are in some cases. But Ohio State is still developing more NFL talent. And I know that that's nobody's objective here. You all care about who wins on the field in college, and I do as well. If we look at the last few seasons, Ohio State has developed better quarterback play. Ohio State has developed better wide receivers. Those aren't even close. Michigan has developed better offensive line play, but not by a ton. Their offensive line play has been pretty comparable, but Michigan's been better. Running back. Well, Michigan obviously is the two guys right now. Michigan has the two better players right now, the better proven players. Now, if you look at the entire running back room, Ohio State's better than Michigan right now. But running back is a position where you don't need to play the fifth guy. So all of Ohio State's running backs aren't necessarily going to serve them well unless there's a rash of injuries. But yeah, so don't be surprised if a year from now that Ohio State didn't have a better season running the ball than Michigan. That's all I'm going to say. But right now, yes, Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum are better than Ohio State's two best running backs. Okay, if we're going to, let's go on a scale of 1 to 10. This will give a little bit more clarity to it. And I'm talking right now, right this second. But we obviously have to lean on the past to evaluate what's going on right now, because otherwise, none of us are going to practice right now today to evaluate the two teams, because that's all that matters right now is what's going on right now at practice. But you have to kind of look at last season and, in a sense, maybe a little bit the season before, but basically last season to see where we stand. Okay. Ohio State's quarterback play last season was a 9 and Michigan's was a 6.5. Now, that Michigan quarterback is back. He's not an elite quarterback. Okay? So let's understand that. J.J. McCarthy, as of right this second, is not an elite quarterback. C.J. Stroud was an elite quarterback, but he's gone. So we know how good Michigan's quarterback is. Now, he has the potential to be an elite quarterback. I did not say that he did not have the potential to be an elite quarterback, but he's not one right now. He was not an elite quarterback last year. He was a good quarterback. He was probably the best quarterback in the conference when Aiden O'Connell was not healthy. After C.J. Stroud. The best one coming back, certainly. He's the best one coming back. Am I missing anyone? Yeah, I would take J.J. McCarthy over Talia Tagovailoa. So, yeah, he's the best quarterback coming back. But we'll see if he's better than Kyle McCord. Okay. So, Ohio State, a 9 at quarterback. Michigan, a 6.5. But the Ohio State guy's gone. All right. So now we've got the 6.5 at quarterback for Michigan And let's say if he gets better. And to his defense, of course, he did not have a full off season last year. He did not have much of an off season last year. And he had a good season. He had a really good year. He threw 22 touchdowns and 5 picks. And he's got impressive foot speed and elusiveness as a runner. All right, the Michigan offensive line, the Ohio State offensive line. Well, the Michigan offensive line last year was a 9 to 9.5. And the Ohio State offensive line was a 7. Now, Ohio State loses those 2 tackles and its center. There is no doubt as we go through this that Ohio State has more question marks than Michigan. Ohio State has a better roster than Michigan still, and that's not even that close, but they also have more question marks. This may not entirely make sense, but that's the reality. Okay, wide receiver play. Okay, Ohio State's a 9.5, and Michigan's a 6. Running back room. Again, I would rank Ohio State to be as good at running back if we ranked all the running backs. But I think the problem, again, is you don't need all the running backs. You don't need 5 running backs. Like if you went down the list, after Michigan gets past the first 2, unless somebody, any number of these guys that we've talked about, Stokes, Dunlap, and on down the line that we've talked about in the offseason, need to come through as a number 3 running back for Michigan. But if Edwards and Corum are healthy, then Stokes and Dunlap and the rest of those guys, Mullings, they can carry the ball in the fourth quarter against Rutgers when they're up 56-10. Big deal. So as long as Corum and Edwards are healthy, Michigan running back room 9 and Ohio State 8. All right, defensive line. Ohio State loses Zach Harrison. Michigan lost Mike Morris. They lost Mozzie Smith. Ohio State should have a better defensive line than Michigan. They should. They just flat out should. They've got so much more talent up front on the defensive line than Michigan. I would say that I'm going to say Ohio State's an 8 and Michigan's a 7.5 because Michigan's just been more stout up front. So Nick is saying, yes, Ayabi Anoma changed to Ayabi Oki, has transferred to where? Houston. He found another location. This is his 5th school. Linebacker. Ohio State was outstanding at linebacker last year. And Michigan was extremely good at linebacker and lost. Help me out here. Michigan lost. Junior Colson's back, right? I'm going to say very comparable linebacker play, but Ohio State with a slight edge there with all those guys coming back. Michigan much better in the secondary. Ohio State's season's going to come down to offensive line play and secondary. And Michigan's season's going to come down to basically, is J.J. McCarthy going to continue to ascend and become an even better player? And can they all stay healthy? And can they find a couple receivers? I know that Cornelius Johnson made big plays at times. Yes. Thank you, Nick. Yes. Junior Colson is back. Ernest Hausman, the transfer from Nebraska, really good linebacker, had a nice season last year. But I like Ohio State's linebackers better than Michigan's. And I like Michigan's secondary much better than Ohio State's. Ohio State has a glaring weakness throughout the secondary. Now, Denzel Burke looked great on Saturday. If he could revert to his form from 2 years ago, and the two incoming players from Ole Miss and Syracuse can provide some answers. Michigan, of course, has a emerging superstar at corner in Will Johnson. Will Johnson is a tremendous talent. He's a much better player, much better talent. He was starting to prove it, much better talent than any Ohio State cornerback. So right now, I'm going Michigan at defensive back in the secondary. Michigan's an 8, and Ohio State's a 5. Where Ohio State is question marks, Michigan has a huge advantage. And Michigan has a proven quarterback, and Ohio State does not. Michigan's floor is higher than Ohio State's floor. Ohio State's ceiling is still higher than Michigan's ceiling. It just is. There's just more talent on the roster. Dependent Fanatic, I don't believe, was listening to me correctly. I said Ohio State has glaring weaknesses in the secondary. I don't necessarily know that there are glaring weaknesses, if I phrased it that way. It's just a marginal secondary. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. I would say, though, that every Michigan fan out there has every right to be just giddy, ecstatic, bragging about the past, the last 2 years, and hopeful for even more, because you've got the main check marks on your side. The games in your house, the quarterback you have is experienced and proven and a 5-star and playing with a full offseason under his belt to get ready for this season. Unlike last year, you have the best running back room possibly in the nation. You have the confidence. You've got the head coach who's got his mojo. The coaching staff has done a tremendous job. And yes, you have shown better player development all over the field. This is the issue. Ohio State has shown tremendous player development in certain spots, but not in other spots. Okay, so all that goes on the Ohio State or on the Michigan side of things. Absolutely. But, the other day, oh man, Nick, you posted that super chat and you're making me probably go out and get a pizza now. So thank you so much for that, Nick. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for that. Best pizza you've ever had anywhere. Love a good pie. Well, let me finish my point on Ohio State and we'll get to that. But my goodness, the other day on Twitter, there were some Michigan fans that were just, and I would have to go back and be able to find exactly the way it was phrased, but they were talking like they've owned this series for years. And it's like, just the way I would have to go back and I would have to find exactly how they were communicating this, but it was a bit much. And it was like, okay, hang on here. Let's you're talking like you've won 17 out of 21. Best pizza ever. Okay. All right. I'm going to make a distinction. I can never answer these questions just straight out. I always have to make a bunch of disclaimers, and I apologize for that, but that's just me. So the first thing is that the best chain pizza that I would get on any kind of regular basis for me has been Papa John's. And I'm talking recently, last 15 years. Before that, at one point, I was a big Pizza Hut fan. Pizza Hut was just for years phenomenal. And I may give them a shot again. When my kids were small and it was, one of those nights where we were going to, it's 12 degrees outside and we were just going to buckle down, watch movies, hang out, have a good time, get some pizza, Pizza Hut. That was the go-to. Or it's a big game night, whatever, Pizza Hut. And then Pizza Hut's quality just, at least the ones close to me, just continued to get worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where I banished Pizza Hut at one point. And of course, anything that I say that could prohibit me from getting a sponsor, I take back. So I banned Pizza Hut at one point, and I have not had Pizza Hut pizza forever. Long time. 10 years at least. All right. Now, so those are chains. Now, in terms of a pizza that's exceptionally good from an original, like Italian, because I know I have gone to certain cities and had pizza that was exceptional, and I didn't really remember where I was. Like I can think of a couple places in New York City where the pizza was tremendous, and I don't recall. So the only one that I'll name by name would be every time that I visit Ohio, every time I visit the Akron area where my family lived and where I would visit, almost every time I would have to visit Luigi's. It's near downtown Akron. It's exceptional. I love Luigi's pizza. Exceptional pizza. I got to go get some pizza now. I am eating pizza tonight. It's all your fault, Nick. I am having pizza tonight. I just am. I am having pizza tonight. I wasn't planning on it, but now I've got to eat pizza. You're right, Antoine. I said it too. Pizza Hut ain't what it used to be. Here's a strange little happening concerning Pizza Hut one time. I was in Washington, D.C. This was about 12 or 13 years ago. I was in Washington, D.C. and staying at a hotel near downtown, somewhat near downtown, and wanted to get something to eat. I was staying there with about 4 or 5 people, and we left to go find something to eat. Didn't know where anything was. And this was like pre-GPS. So this is like 09, 2010, somewhere in that range. Zone 6 just ordered Luigi's. The only issue I have with Luigi's is they just take cash and checks. I don't carry checks on me, and I don't carry cash with me. Like, I've got one credit card. Well, I've got about 5 credit cards, but I've got one that I use all the time. I just want all my points on that credit card, and that's all I use. But we stop at a Pizza Hut in Washington, D.C., and it was the Pizza Hut building, but we ordered pizza, and it was not Pizza Hut pizza. It was like generic pizza at a Pizza Hut. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And I even asked, I said, this doesn't look like Pizza Hut pizza. And they said, well, this isn't an official Pizza Hut. And I said, well, this is a Pizza Hut building, and you've got the sign and the trademark and everything here. But they didn't serve Pizza Hut pizza. That was in Washington, D.C. I also had that type of experience at an Dairy Queen in Alabama. We stop at a Dairy Queen. I'm traveling somewhere between Alabama and Mississippi on Route 82, close to Tuscaloosa. Back when I was covering the Tide, I stop at a Pizza Hut with a few people, and I ordered an M&M's Blizzard. I get the M&M's Blizzard, and they're not M&M's. They are just like chocolate pieces. And so I look, and they have the M&M's logo with the trademark. And I said, well, this is not necessarily an M&M's Blizzard. These aren't M&M's. And they said, well, we don't use M&M's. And I said, well, you're advertising. Why don't you call this something else? But you are using the M&M's logo and trademark, and you're just throwing generic M&M's in, but they're not M&M's. So you shouldn't be able to do that. Another odd dessert type experience I remember one time that for some reason comes to mind. And yes, I love DQ as well. And just because of Erica and because of Nick, I will probably have to get a pizza tonight and DQ. Is that this was just struck me funny at the time. I was at a bowling alley, a group of people, and we wanted chocolate milkshakes. And I said, everybody made their order. And then I said, I want a large chocolate milkshake. And they said, we only serve one size. And I said, okay, well, I just want to make sure, give me the largest chocolate milkshake that you've got. And they said, we only have one size. And I said, okay, that's fine. But in case that you did have various sizes, I want the largest chocolate milkshake that you've got. And they confirmed again, we only have one size. They brought our chocolate milkshakes out, and everybody had one size. And then they gave me this huge chocolate milkshake, which I didn't mind because that's what I asked for. But they were adamant about telling me we only have one size of chocolate milkshake. Dilly bars. I've not had a dilly bar in forever. I go for the Blizzard, of course. Dan Beast Media goes for the banana split Blizzard or the chocolate cherry Blizzard. I go for chocolate cherry. That sounds pretty good. Banana split would not do anything for me. Connor says, I missed the Pac-12 show. Are we waiting for a media deal before we bring it back on Wednesdays? I really don't know. You'll have to talk to our Pac-12 buddies. You know, back a long time ago, Connor, before your time and before probably the time of anyone here, we had a Pac-12 show, Pac-12 Live, that I did. I know, Connor, you probably couldn't trust me with Pac-12 football discussion, but I took it on every week. Nick, Mark, did you hear about the KFC gaming console? It's a real thing, and you can store your chicken inside of the console, and it keeps it warm when you are playing. They also had anti-grease controllers. What? No, thank you. Don't need that. KFC is one of those acquired tastes that it strikes me differently all the time. Meaning sometimes it tastes amazing. Like the recipe is phenomenal. The taste of it, the flavor is phenomenal. But sometimes if they don't get it just right, and it kind of catches me as, really, this is disgusting. Really, if I'm really thinking about what this is and what I'm eating, and they didn't make it really well this time, or maybe it's a little bit old, it's kind of disgusting. Cauliflower cauliflower crust pizza. Now, do you do that, Gregory, because of the health benefits, or does it actually taste good? Yes, KFC is way too greasy. Too greasy sometimes. Yes. I believe I missed a super chat. Yes, Erica. Sorry about that. Erica, hope you're still with us. Catching up to Erica's super chat. Your opinion on deep dish. I have always loved and preferred deep dish over anything else. However, by living in the Northeast for as long as I did, I got to say that I grew to appreciate the thin crust. I did. For me, you can make pizza in a variety of ways and they all work. They can work. But when I first moved to the Northeast, coming from the Midwest, it was all deep dish. Another pizza story for you. It was my first job at the beautiful WNCO in Ashland, Ohio. And we had one of those. I don't know if this is a big deal anymore. Probably not, because people don't listen to the radio much anymore. But they used to have like competitions between TV stations or radio stations to raise money for a fundraiser for donations and for charity. And there was a East of Chicago pizza that was opening in Ashland, which I've not had East of Chicago pizza for a long, long time, but I was hooked on that. It was great. I don't know if it still is excellent pizza, but I thought when they first, I don't know if this is when they first opened, but when I first became aware of East of Chicago, I loved their pizza. It was great. So we had this fundraiser where we were having this competition of who could eat the most pizza. And so this was one time that it was very fortunate of me that I was back in the line. Like, we had our line of people from our radio TV station, and I was like ninth in line. Like, we had our weather guy was first, and then somebody else and somebody else. And we just got in line wherever we wanted to. Well, they brought out these steaming hot pizzas. I mean, they were scalding hot, and it was all on a timer. And so the people that were there first, that were in line, and at the start of the competition, as soon as they blew the whistle, the pizza was so scalding hot they couldn't eat it. My response would have been, time out, time out. Hey, I'm not eating this pizza. It's going to scald my mouth, and I'm going to regret this for about 3 weeks. But these knuckleheads, they were competitive, which I generally am too. But they were competitive to the point that these knuckleheads started they had pitchers of water, and they started dousing the pizza with water, cold water. It was disgusting. And they're just shoveling it down. It's like watching one of these eating contests on ESPN on the 4th of July. And I was disgusted by it. Fortunately, by the time I got to the front and it was my turn, pizza was cooled down. I could just eat pizza. And I'm not one to take on any kind of eating contest because I'm not a fast eater at all. I might surprise you. I can eat quite a bit. I just don't eat fast. All right. It looks like Packer 910 is going to bring us back to the football talk. Here we go. Mac Brown has been saying all spring that he thinks the NCAA is going to let analysts coach on the field. Have you heard anything about along those lines? I have not. Now, I have always wondered why that was an issue. I would have to have somebody explain to me, why is this an issue? Why can't analysts communicate directly with the players? And I'm not sure, not every rule has a good reason. So this could be just some arbitrary rule or not. But I apologize, Packer 910, but I kind of combined your name with Mac Brown there. Packer 910. That I don't know anything about that. I did not hear anything about that. Now, is Mac Brown saying that because he wants that? He's pushing for that? Again, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to communicate with the players. I never did understand that rule and never had anyone give me a good reason why. We appreciate all the super chat contributions. Thank you so much for that. And as Joey is letting everyone know, thanks for the support at the store last merch. Thanks for the support at the store last merch store. Also, next time you're there, check out Joey's Coffee. All right, I'm going to have to check that out. Joey's Coffee at the merch store. Dan Beast Media says that he believes that the initiative failed. Yes, Daniel, no pineapple on any pizza that I'm going to eat. Howie's Pizza and Subs. Never heard of that. That must be a Michigan thing. Well, I got to say, I do appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. And Joey is letting us know that we've got a it is funny because every time Joey and I discuss merchandise, Joey insists on calling it Mark Rogers merchandise. Our Voice of College Football merchandise. Whichever way is going to sell more, Joey, whichever way that is. But we do have a coffee mug, and you can get your coffee at the same time from Joey's Quality Coffee. How about that? You get the mug and the coffee. Now, I cannot personally vouch for the coffee, but if Joey's vouching for the coffee, saying it's quality, Joey's Quality Coffee, then that's enough for me. That's good enough for me. I don't drink coffee, so I'm going to have to take it from all of you. So somebody try out Joey's Coffee. Jason says, Cottage in Pizza #1. I'm not aware of them. Are they located in Michigan? Don't know anything about them. Yeah, so I have become a little bit more flexible on pizza toppings as I've become older, and I just am okay with eating whatever is ordered to a certain extent. But if I order it myself, I either just go pepperoni and mushrooms or pepperoni, mushrooms, and sausage. That's pretty standard for me. That's what I order. Now, if somebody wants to order green peppers are fine, onions are fine, hamburger is fine. What is the place where you make your own pizza? Where you walk in and they have all the toppings in the various containers and you tell them exactly what you want. What's the name of that place? I've gone to those in Texas. That's the only place I've seen them. What are those called? I forget. All right. Thin or thick, dependent. Again, I grew up with thick, but I appreciate thin as well. And do appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, stop by our merch store. Check out the merch. Joey and I did our very best to combine quality and cost. And we are going to deliver all sorts of great content here coming up at the Voice of College Football, which will include program rankings, all-time rankings. Those are different. So 2023 program rankings and then all-time rankings that we will do at a later date in the summer. And I am just about ready to jump on position rankings as well and rating the players, the top 10, let's say, at each position in the Big Ten. And what else are we going to get on here soon? Oh, I got to deliver. Yes. we are gearing up for our Great Debate Month as well. Great Debate Month. Let me show you the debates that we are considering. And I just thought of another good one today, and now I can't remember what it was. I should have taken note of it. So let's see. Back in March, hot seat rankings. I did those. ACC Pac-12 merge. I did not do a video on that. That talk kind of cooled. Under the radar games, I did that. Check out that video. All-time program rankings. Those are coming up here soon, as well as the current program rankings for 2023. This year's TCU. Is that North Carolina? This year's TCU. This year's TCU. North Carolina, Wisconsin, Texas A&M. All right. My famous plus or minus 3. I'm going to produce that video for sure. My famous plus or minus 3. Who's going to go up by at least 3 or down by at least 3? April. Spring games. We're dealing with that right now. Then post-spring, we're going to do our reset in post-spring, which is going to mean conference power rankings. My not way too early top 25, but still too early top 25 as we reset after spring practice. Position rankings, player rankings, transfer rankings. Well, I don't know if I'm going to do many transfer rankings, but I'm going to definitely, we cover that and will all over the place. Yeah. So here are some of the teams that obviously are being talked about concerning realignment. Miami, Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, out of the Pac-12, Washington, Oregon, Cal, Stanford. And what we've done in the past, and you guys have enjoyed this, is looking at how those individual schools have fared against their proposed new conference. So we've matched up Oklahoma and Texas against the SEC. We've looked at how USC and UCLA have fared in the past against the Big Ten. So we will dive in on some of these schools that are possible candidates to move conferences. Week 0 and week 1 previews. Those did extremely well last year. During the summer, I produced week 1 previews: Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Oregon, Utah, Florida, and some other ones. Those did extremely well. So thank you for that. And we will do those as well. Timothy says, every time I do a super chat, it never gets read. Come on, Timothy, really? That is never my intent. I appreciate every super chat, and it is our policy to read them all. There's only been 2 that I've ever bypassed in all the years of the Voice of College Football because they were not appropriate to be read. They were slandering some kind of group. So Timothy, Hunt Brothers is phenomenal. You know what, Timothy? Since you have apparently been ignored on your super chats in the past, which I can't believe that, but I'm not saying you're not telling us the truth there, that we'll do a little breakdown on Hunt Brothers Pizza. Hunt Brothers. Oh, it's in Ohio. I've never heard of it. There's one in Canton, Worcester, Massillon. Okay. Hunt Brothers was founded in 1991. And is it all over Ohio? Let's see here. Or is it across the nation? Oh, it's from Nashville. Hunt Brothers Pizza, established in 1991 in Nashville. NASCAR partnership. Okay, there you go. I did not know anything about Hunt Brothers Pizza. I will have to try that out. You know, pizza is the one food that I basically cannot ever get sick of. I don't believe I ever have. I could eat it 4 or 5 times a week. I shouldn't, and I don't. So, folks, we appreciate you being here. And again, May is great debate month here at the Voice of College Football. So, this is what I've got lined up besides what I thought of today that I can't think of now. Look at all those Ohio State topics. Miami, Notre Dame, 1988, Nebraska, Texas, 2009. And actually, I'm going to add to this 1993, Florida State, Notre Dame. Michigan, Nebraska. That's going to be a good one as well. Michigan, Nebraska, 1997. Great debate. All right, folks, I think we have hit the end of the Big Ten Live show for this week. Appreciate you all being here. Check us out on the USC show a little bit later tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern tonight on the USC show. And we'll be back here Tuesday for the SEC Live show at noon Eastern time. All right, folks, be good to yourself. We'll see you tonight at 11 Eastern on the USC show. Elvis Nation, thank you for another great one and many great ones on your channel, sir. And everybody have a good night.